This is one of the most important tools for fishing a kayak bass tournament. It is a bump board, a fish measuring device. In today's video, we're going to do a short walkthrough of what they are, some best practices, and some tips how to mount them to your kayaks for those of you that are new in the kayak bass fishing scene. So when it comes to fishing a kayak tournament, we do not generally go with scales, right? Like most bass tournaments in a boat. You're gonna measure the weight of your fish, your 5 fish aggregate, 3 fish, whatever, ultimate, however many fish you catch. In a kayak scene tournament, you're going off of length. And how we measure the length of our fish is on an approved bump board. And this is a Ketch. This is the only brand I use. There are tons of others out there, but we're gonna walk through some of the different features of a board, how to properly bump board your fish, and then how I store them, and some practices to make sure you don't lose your bump boards, because they can get expensive if you drop them in the water. So before we get any deeper into this, I'm going to throw up a picture of a submitted photo from a tournament, and we're going to talk about how the rules translate over to the picture, right? Because there's some discrepancy of, can your hand be touching the gill plate, right? Can your hand touch the tail? And that is very trail dependent, right? So you got to make sure you read your trail rules and diagrams associated. But we're going to pull up a picture real quick and we're going to talk through it. Just the nose positioning, how the fish goes on the board, and then we'll go into the tips on how to secure your fish, calm them, and how I place it on the kayak. So we're going to break down this photo of a fish I took earlier this year. We're going to start with the positioning and then walk through the whole thing. This photo was submitted to Kayak Bass Fishing KBF, so this is their standard. Obviously, you can see the bump board is placed on the deck of my kayak with the net underneath the board to prevent the fish from getting out, just like we talked about earlier. With Kayak Bass Fishing, they want their specific identifier, and that's displayed on the Ketch slider. It's to the right of the fish because the fins will obstruct on your identifiers if I had it centered on the board. As a good rule of thumb, I like to leave 2 to 3 inches past the longest length of the fish, just so the tournament judge can distinguish the total length, and it prevents discrepancies. Looking at the front of the board or the fence, you can see because I have the Tactical Fishing logo engraved on the board, the nose is clearly touching. Another tip to remember is if the lips are separated, if there's a gap, some trails will deduct inches, and that could vary from 1/4 to 1/2, a full inch, or a DQ. So make sure when you're bump boarding your fish, physically push the fish's face against the fence so that way the mouth closes. I know that can be difficult sometimes, but ensuring that the picture is done properly will prevent a DQ. To kind of help with this, I like to put the board on an angle. It's on the deck of the kayak, but the edge of the board is raised up on the gunnel. It gives a little bit of an angle and helps the fish kind of slide naturally into the fence, and it doesn't feel like it's being pushed on or forced in a manner it doesn't want to be. So as for hand placement, despite contrary belief, you can put your hand on top of the gill plate region. Your hand cannot just be inside of the gill plate. I prefer to put my hand here because I can pin the head of the fish to prevent him from head shaking and getting off the board, as opposed to touching the tail section, which a lot of trails, they don't like you touching the tail. You can touch the meaty portion before it actually hits the fins, but touching of the tail or manipulating the fish's tail is a disqualifying factor in a lot of tournament trails. So please consult the rules yet again, depending on the trail you're fishing. So some final tips with boarding. Again, you can see in the photo, half of it is in the shade, the other half is in the sun. So when you're taking your photos, make sure you review them before you submit them. That sunny section on the right side of the board can cause some glare. So I angled my identifier so there's no glare on the IDs and also on the numbering on the board. Again, review your photos, don't release the fish until it's reviewed, and make sure you're abiding by the tournament trail that you're fishing. So when it comes to bump boarding your fish on the deck of the kayak, a lot of people, like myself, will have it in this position for your photo, and the board is actually on your lap, but others will put it on the actual deck of the kayak. Now, depending on what kayak you have, I have a slot, here on the kayak to place it. It extends past it, and the smallest 26-inch board will still fit, and your photo will be taken right above like this. Now, a quick tip I do recommend, if putting your board on the edge like this, is taking your net and securing it underneath your board. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick for you guys so you can see, followed by a clip of me saving a fish and losing one from not listening to my own advice. But this has saved me a ton of fish, some bigger than others, including a personal best. So on the kayak itself, we have our board and we have our net. And all this is going to prevent is this fish from jumping right out into the water. Now, I usually angle this up and prop it so it serves like a little goalie net and the fish can jump into it, or it will land in the deck of my kayak. But board on top of your net, man, I'm telling you, if you're not doing it, you're going to lose fish. Everybody does on a bump board. These are slippery. The fish are slimy. This has saved me a ton. So for accessories, I highly suggest you invest in a board leash. It doesn't have to be the Rogue. I'll drop the link in the description for this one, but it is simply a protectant so your board doesn't get knocked off and fall in the water, right? And this clip here, I like to just attach it to my handle on my kayak and it's secured, right? So your board is not going to fall off. When you're dunking your boards in the water, that is a big tip for the slime coats of the fish. Dunk your board in the water first, calms them down, doesn't burn them, protects the slime coat. This leash is going to prevent you from losing it, especially with how I mount it, and I'll show you. When it comes to mounting the Ketch boards, I like using the Yak Attack paddle holder. It actually fits perfect. I know the Yak Attack leader boards have their own mounting hardware, but I put this on the side, easily accessible right next to me. And I've showed you guys this in other videos. It's secure, latches in place, and pops right out. You can keep that behind you or on the side. I like to keep it on the side of me. And then my leash keeps it leashed down right here, and it's still long enough I can put it on the kayak deck. Now, when it comes to identifiers, right, there are a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. This is from Trash Panda Decals. It is a tin tag, and I have, sorry, Steve, you're going to get mad at me, the lunker, right? I think it's what it's called. It has two different slots. It's a bigger one for multiple identifiers, but this is mounted to a Ketch board identifier holder, right? And this slides up and down your board here, because some tournaments, they don't want the fish touching the identifier, blocking any of it. And this part pops right out. So there's this style identifier. There's also the kind that are like a little wristband that sit on there. The biggest thing with me, and a tip, is make sure you have, in the tournaments that you really care about, have multiple identifiers, right? Because your glare, your sun glare, see how you're getting some glare off there? When you take a photo, it may block out your identifier, and if the ID isn't present, the fish doesn't count. So with most tournaments, you want to pick your board to the size fish you are catching, and you will see here, we have all the way up to a 48-inch board. Now they do have a 26, and they have some that are even smaller for micro species, but I fish for bass, snakehead, and soon saltwater. So you want to make sure you have a board that it can appropriately range the size fish, because if you catch a 27-inch bass and your board's 26, well, it's only going to be 26 inches. So for the snakehead scene specifically, a lot of these 32s don't work. The 36s aren't legal. So Ketch has a 40-inch board for you. 37-inch is basically the cap of what we've seen. And we were using the 48s before they released that one. And you can see it's folding, and it's pretty heavy duty. So biggest tip, oversize your board. What the most you can fit in your kayak, and make sure it's big in case you land that personal best you want it to count. Hope you guys enjoyed this quicker video. I know it is aimed more at the kayak scene, more at newer fishermen that are unfamiliar with the board, but these are some tips that are going to help save you fish, right? Make sure you are always consulting the tournament trails you're fishing in to make sure your boarding standards are the same. Hand placement, mouth placement, touching the tail, and so forth. But hope you guys got something out of it. Hope you learned. Share it with a friend, like and sub, and we'll see you on the next one.